provocative, prophetic, and practical,
intellectual stew,
informative and inspirational. How you gonna do better if you don't know what better looks like? I do.
intellectual stew,
Come on, let's talk about it with me, the mind massager.
intellectual.
The intellectual stew, and we are on once again. It's 9:30 Eastern Standard Time here in Atlanta, and wherever you are, hey, it's a good time to get on and to have a conversation. I am super excited to be here tonight and to do our second show. I'm just so excited. The last week we got a lot of positive feedback. I guess we got probably a little, a little negative feedback. One thing for sure that I'm working on is I'm working on not being able to be so offended, because you know what? Most of the criticism that we got was constructive criticism, and I'm excited about that. I really am. I learned several lessons last week as it relates. But first of all, before we move on to that, let me go ahead and say that I'm not here alone, but I do have a couple of my sidekicks with me. I have my daughter Kennedy. Say hello, Kennedy.
Hello.
That's all you're just gonna say? I guess that's all I told you to say, huh? Hey, Mackenzie.
Hi.
Okay, so I got Kennedy and Mackenzie in the studio with me tonight, and we're going to have a conversation. Tonight, we're going to talk about the importance of clear communication in families, in the family structure. But before we go on to that, let's talk about some of the lessons that we learned on last week. One such lesson that oh yeah, by the way, if you're watching me on my Facebook Live, I want you to go to YouTube. Go to YouTube. I'm going to cut this live off in just a few moments, but I want you to go to YouTube, and I want you to go to DISCO100 Radio and subscribe there. That way you can see us here in the studio. So I want you to go to DISCO100 Radio and subscribe there, and then you'll be able to see exactly what's going on here in the studio. But what I want to do tonight is I want to talk, first of all, is kind of recap last week. We learned a couple of different lessons. We only got an hour on the show, so therefore we have to make sure that we practice time management. When calls come in, sometimes I'm going to have to limit those phone calls, especially when things get kind of redundant, or if we see that there's no productivity in the conversation. Listen, let me explain. Let me drop this caveat out there for free. We're not going to agree on everything, and that's okay. That's okay, because we're all human. We're all different. We all have our own different fingerprints. So therefore, we're going to have differences of opinions. Okay. But as long as we can agree to disagree, then that's a good thing. All right. So we can still walk away loving one another and all that. And let me just say this also. I want to drop this one on you. We're not here to have a battle of the sexes. That's not what I want to do. I don't want us to get to the point where we're practicing point the finger righters, where the females are pointing the finger at the males and the males are pointing the finger at the male. My goal, hear me well and hear me well. My goal is reconciliation. I want to see us reconcile, because I believe if we practice reconciliation, we can experience restoration in our communities. And that is the ultimate goal. I want us to be able to reconcile. I think that if black men and black women could ever learn how to tell each other that we're sorry, if we could ever reconcile, I think we would be a powerful force, and we can become more united, and we'll be a powerful force in the community. So let me just say that this is not a battle of the sexes. So I don't want to hear well, y'all men, and then if I said last week y'all women, I'm sorry. I mean, so I don't want to do that. And I want to try, and I also want to say, let's talk from this platform of what's supposed to be. We understand that there are some things that just are, we understand that single mothers lead most homes. We understand that there are a lot of negatives going on in the community. I get all of that, but we want to talk from a what it's supposed to be standpoint. So that's going to be our foundation. All right. So we don't have to bring up, well, no, I get it. Everybody has a different scenario. Everybody has a different situation, but I don't want to really deal with specifics as much as I want to deal with generals. Okay. Like I said, I see some people on my live. If you're on my live, go to YouTube and subscribe at DISCO100 Radio, and you can see what is going on actually in the studio. I got these two beautiful little girls with me, my daughters. I got Mackenzie and I have Kennedy, and I got Disco over here. He's keep pointing at me, telling me to look in the mic. I'm working on that. Okay, I'm gonna be better next week than I am this week. All right, thank you. So pray for me. All right, so that was my next thing that I had to work on as far as a recap. Not only should I work on time management, but I also need to work on getting comfortable with the camera. I got to make sure that I stay looking in the camera. So I'm working on that. Give me time. I promise you I'm going to get it. I'm used to talking to a radio and nobody on the other end. So give me a chance. I'm going to get it. I promise you. Another thing somebody told me is I deflect too much. I got to learn how to accept a compliment. I think last week my son gave me a compliment. And before I could get the compliment, I could accept the compliment, I was deflecting and giving credit to my daughter for her GPA. So many people called me this week, said, James, you did a good job. James, keep working on it. James, I think you might have found something. And I really did enjoy it. I really did. So I'm looking forward to growing with you as we continue to put this community together. And I want all of us to get on the path towards better. Now, I have Mackenzie and Kennedy. Mackenzie says she's just chilling tonight, so she's just watching off camera. But Kennedy is going to help me tonight as we prepare to talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. I don't see the phone number on the screen, Disco. What is it? It's nothing showing on the screen, sir.
You're looking right at it.
Bro, I'm looking at the screen. There's nothing on this screen.
You ain't on the screen?
No.
Oh.
That's what I'm not going to lie to you. I promise I ain't going to lie to you. If I said it, I meant it. It's nothing showing. There we go. Now, the phone number is...
It's been on the screen the whole time.
No, the screen was burgundy with HDMI 1, but I didn't see it.
They see it.
Okay, but I can't tell them what I don't see. Now the phone number is... Why are we arguing?
That's what you do.
Yeah, well, you doing it too, so both of us are doing it together.
It's on the screen, sir.
Now it is. Yeah, well, it won't help me if I can't see it. Huh?
You can't call
But I can't tell them to call the number if I can't tell them the number because I need to talk to them. Okay, the phone number is 678 yeah, but we're gonna do it. Let me do it this one, like 678-638-6626. That's the phone number if you want to call in and make a comment about tonight. Y'all pray for Disco, y'all. I promise everybody stretch your hands in that direction and we're gonna pray that spirit. He tired, y'all. He's sleepy. It's late tonight. I understand. So I want to, but first of all, let me drop this one too. Disco.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You've been very patient with me. You've given me a little room to grow so far. You've shown me a few things so far, and you've actually given me a platform to start this podcast. And I want to say thank you publicly, okay?
Thank you for coming, man.
All right. And also, Kennedy, I want to thank you because you have so far been doing a lot of the technical things that I need done that I wasn't able to get done before. So, Kennedy, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. And Mackenzie, thank you just for showing up tonight and being your pretty self. I see my partner, Stephen T. Robinson from North Little Rock, Arkansas, is watching, and he's saying, congratulations, bruh. But listen, if you want to call in, say anything, 678-638-6626. But let's get to the topic, tonight's discussion. The things that we're talking about is the importance of clear communication. Now, I want to deal with clear communication in relationships, and we have different dynamics of relationships. You have the dynamics of relationships that I want to deal with tonight are, number one, spousal relationships, number two, parental relationships that exist between parents and their children, whether it be a single mother or whether it be a two-parent home, whether a single father, whatever it is. I want to deal with parental relationships. I also want to deal with professional relationships. That's relationships in the workplace. And I also want to deal with relationships with our friends, because even friends, it's a certain way that we ought to be able to communicate with each other and keep it respectful. Okay, so that's what we're going to do tonight. Now, last week we asked a question, and that question got us a little buzz because Kawana called in, and we had a long conversation. But we talked about, the question was, is it more important, which is more important, getting your point across or keeping the peace? Which one is more important? And this is a rhetorical question for us in the studio, but I'm asking that question for those that are listening. Which one to you is more important? Is it more important to get your point across, or is it more important to keep the peace? Now, I believe that it's possible to do both. I think it's a way that you should be able to get your point across while keeping the peace. The problem comes when a person is unsuccessful at getting their point across, and then what tends to happen at that point is frustration sets in, because the other individual is not understanding what you're saying, what the sender or the one who's talking is trying, the message that they're trying to convey. And so they get confused, and when they get confused, then the decibels of their voice start to go higher. And as the decibels of their voice start to go higher, then they get upset. And as they start to get upset, then you should be able to, then all of a sudden now an argument ensues. And I'm going to be honest, I'm the type person, I'm a Cancer, July 6th is my birthday. We have, crabs have shells, right? So I'm the type person, if you yell at me, if the conversation becomes contentious, as soon as you yell at me, I'm shutting down. I'm probably going to go inside my shell. I'm going to put up a do not disturb sign. I'm probably going to draw a picture on it, but I'm not going to tell you the picture I would draw on it, because if I tell you the picture I'm going to draw on it, then you would probably question whether or not I'm a preacher or not. But I'm telling you, I shut down when people call themselves trying to yell at me. So I don't know if anybody else is like that. So sometimes what happens when a person is trying to communicate a particular message, what transpires is that when the decibels of that voice starts to go higher, then everything. I know my daughter, Mackenzie's in that room. She's the same way. You cannot yell at her like that, because if you do, she's shutting down. And I get it. A lot of people are so used to tough love and all of these types of things. I get it. But you can't communicate with everyone the same way. So let's go a little bit further. Now, the definition of interpersonal communication is the process of exchange of information, ideas, and feelings between two or more people through verbal and nonverbal methods. Okay, let me say that again. The definition of interpersonal communication is the process of exchange of information, ideas, and feelings between two or more people through verbal and or nonverbal methods. Now, there are 4 types of interpersonal communication. I agree, Sabrina, we can do both. 4 types of interpersonal communication. Verbal, that's one, that's me talking. Nonverbal, that means facial expressions, body reactions, all body action, all those types of things. Written communication, and then there's listening. Now, the one that we tend to, I think, participate in the most is the written forms of communication. That's the one we fit. Is that right, Lady Bug?
Especially with social media and all of our phones and stuff today.
Okay, and let's talk about that for a minute, because even I hear in relationships, some people say, I don't want to pen pal, or I don't want to continue texting all the time. But is texting a form of communication?
Sure, it's the quickest way.
It's the quickest way.
Yeah.
And doing so, with it being the quickest way, sometimes it's less intrusive, it's less invasive, and you're able to do it and kind of keep moving. Say what? No. So texting is a form of communication. I know a lot of people that don't like texting. And I remember one time, it was a long time ago, Trey, my son Trey, he said, Dad, we don't talk much. I said, yeah, but we text all day long. I say that's communication, right? But it is a form of communication. But the problem I see with texting sometimes is that texts have no tone, and they're oftentimes misinterpreted because you can't interpret a person's intent when you're trying to text a message. So, and then oftentimes they're misinterpreted, which could lead to a whole lot of other problems. So these are the components of interpersonal communication. The components of interpersonal communication, number one is the sender. That's the one that's doing the talking, right? Then we have the receiver. That's the one that's being talked to. But then finally we have the medium or the channel, and that's what the message is sent on. So the sender has the message. The sender wants to get the message to the receiver. Now, what medium does he use to be successful in making sure that he gets a message that's palatable, that's codable, that's something that can be encoded, something that can be shared. Hey, how you doing, my sister? That can be productive. Because I asked you all a question earlier today on Facebook. I said, what is the intention of interpersonal conversation? I mean, what's the end result? And everybody that came on said that they wanted their end result of effective communication to be clarity, that they wanted there to be understanding. They wanted to make sure that I asked my daughter the same question. What did you say your answer was?
I said that the receiver is getting the message that the sender is trying to convey. So understanding between the two, and they're sharing the same message.
All right, and that's it. So we want to make sure that we're getting when we leave this conversation, I want to make sure that we have an understanding. And if we have an understanding, that means that we had a productive conversation. Now, this works in every relationship. It's not just relationship between spouses, husbands, and wives, or those that are in romantic relationships. This happens with your children. This happens with coworkers on the job. This happens with everybody anybody that you get into a conversation with. Then you should be able to walk away with an understanding. Now, if you don't get an understanding, that's when frustration sets in. So if frustration sets in, if you're trying to get a point across and frustration sets in, then what happens next? What's the challenge? How do you go forward getting that point across? Do you reapproach and say, let me try it another way? Different things. So Kennedy, come on. I want you to talk for a few moments about the characteristics of competent communication.
Well, there are 3 characteristics to being a competent communicator, and that means that your communication is effective, which means that it's clear. It's appropriate, which means that what you're talking about in a certain environment is okay to be talked about there, and who you're talking to, you're speaking in a way that they can understand. And then there's ethical, which means there's no ill intentions in what you're saying to that person.
So the characteristics should be effective. A good communication should be effective. It should be appropriate, and it should be ethical. So let's talk a little bit more about the appropriate. Mm-hmm. Let's talk more about the appropriate, because sometimes in our communication, we're communicating messages. What's up, Carlos? We're communicating messages we're talking a certain way around our children when we shouldn't be talking around our children. And if you talk a certain way around your children and you overexpose them to something that they shouldn't be exposed to, you're putting them in a bad situation, because now they're trying to work out thoughts in their heads that they're not equipped to handle. So you just need to make sure that in your communicating, that you communicate in such a way that, first of all, it's appropriate, right? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Because you said the way someone speaks or what they speak about is acceptable in their environment and with the person they're communicating with. So I don't need to be talking to a young girl about something inappropriate. Mm-hmm. And likewise, I shouldn't be talking. You know what? I mean, all of you all's lives, and even with Trey, I think I've always kept it a certain way. I try to keep it where y'all's friends were y'all's friends, and I didn't minimize my position in their life. What their friend, y'all's friends couldn't call me James. No, I mean, I was Mr. Kirkland, and I'm still Mr. Kirkland. And likewise, my dad to my friends, and I'm 48, and so most of my friends are about the same age. They still call my dad Mr. Kirkland. Why? Because it was a certain way that he communicated, and he didn't expose them to things that they weren't supposed to be exposed to. And that's what also in turn helps communication becomes effective.
Right.
Because if I'm talking to you about something that you know nothing about, then how is that communication effective? I remember, Mackenzie, I remember when you were a little bit younger, we had a conversation. And when I was talking to you like you understood what I was talking about. And I'm 48 now, and you're 17. So with me being 48, I can't expect my 17-year-old to know what I had to learn. Does that make sense? Because if it's taking me 48 years to learn a certain thing, right? If it's taking me this long to learn this, and my child has only lived 17 years, then I can't expect them to know. So if I'm going to be effective in communication, I got to first of all make sure that I speak clear and concise on a level that they can understand. Whether they're 8 months or 80 years old, it's a certain way. If it's the sender's responsibility to package the message in such a way that when the message is sent forth, then the person that is receiving that message the communication is effective, because I put it out there in such a way that it's palatable and they can digest it. And then at the end of the day, we leave with understanding, right? So talk a little bit more about the ethical characteristic of competent communication.
I think ethics is really about knowing who you're speaking to, especially in this case, if we're talking about romantic relationships, friendships, parental relationships. We know these people. You have to take the time to understand them and what they'll respond to. You were talking about tough love earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm probably not the best receiver of tough love, especially from you and Mom, but I think I'm better with like coaches and stuff. So it's like you have to know what will hurt them. You have to know how they'll respond to certain things. So that's the ethical part of it.
That's good. So I don't think any of my children responded to tough love.
Mm-mm.
We didn't really give y'all tough love like that, did we? So how would you say our parenting style was if it wasn't tough love? What was it? Because I remember once before you said I kind of gave you a mixture of it. So what did communication for Kennedy look like in the Kirkland household, especially from dad and from dad? How did communication look?
You just talked at a normal level. What do you
I know I raised my voice.
I know, but it's like not ingrained in my mind. I feel like you have that personality where you could obviously like see that you have the ability to like be forceful, but you weren't really that way with, especially I guess Mackenzie and I.
Okay, yeah, I was a little harder on Trey. Trey. Honestly, with him being the first child is always on the job training. I mean, it's you kind of get it right. You take a mixture of how you were parented, the things you liked, the things you didn't like, the things you didn't like you throw away, the things you do like you kind of keep, and you build on those types of things. So of course there were some things I'm sure that I didn't like, because you got that honest, that whole not liking tough love thing. I don't respond to tough love either. I do not respond to it. I played some sports, but that wasn't really my thing, that whole tough love. Why can't you see your niece? Which one? Mackenzie, she doesn't want to be on camera. She don't want to be on camera, so you have to call her on FaceTime and she'll talk to you. Like, that's Auntie Kim talking to you right there. But Kim, if you are not on YouTube, go on YouTube and go to DISCO100 so you can see us in the studio. So the three characteristics of competent communication are effective communication, appropriate communication, and ethical communication. So we've talked about those. If anybody like I said, wants to add to the conversation, the question that's going forward right now, is it more important to get your point across or to keep the peace? The question, the phone number is 678-638-6626. Feel free to call in. If you want to see inside the studio, you got to go to YouTube. You can't see it on my live. Like I said, so go to YouTube. So let's go a little bit further. Kennedy, now we talked about the different relationship dynamics. They are the romantic and the spousal. There is the parental and the child. There's the friendship, and there's the professional upward and downward community, right? Explain that.
Well, for professional, if it's upward, that means like employee to employer,
Okay.
and downwards from employer to employee. So there's obviously different ways and different things at stake when speaking in those different channels.
Exactly. And so, and typically in a business, there's a top, the person that's the boss. A lot of people have learned from a mentality of a top-down mentality. So they feel like if they're the boss, that they have a certain authoritative position in your life, and with them having that authoritative position, sometimes authoritative lets you feel like you can be abusive, and you should not be abusive when if you're the sender and you're conveying a message. And she just talked about that a minute ago. Effective communication should be ethical. You should not use your words to tear people down. I know I've been probably guilty of doing some of that. Disco, I'm sure we've all been guilty at some point in life of using words to tear people down. I know people who can use words as a weapon, especially if you got a good enough vocabulary. You can use words as a weapon. But we should always strive to have effective communication, whatever type of relationship we have, whether it's a romantic or a spousal relationship, whether it's a parental or a parent-child relationship, whether it's a friendship or a professional. Our words should edify. Our words should build people up. And I just honestly don't understand why contention exists between two grown people. I mean, we should be able to get together and come up with a popular consensus or something that's good enough to get effective communication. Okay, so next thing is now. So I want to look at the three components of effective communication. I told you all that earlier. The first component is the sender. Second component is the receiver. Third component is the medium or the message or the channel which the message is sent on. So let's talk about the sender for a minute. A sender, the one that's sending a message. If I'm talking to my children and I'm trying to set goals, or I'm trying to set some standards, or I'm trying to set some rules, then the first thing I should know, if I'm a sender and I'm talking to, and I'm dealing with the receiver, I should definitely be cognitive. I should know who I'm talking to because you can't talk to everyone the same way. True? Right. All right. So you cannot talk to everyone the same way. So before we talk to someone, we should be cognitive. We should think before we speak. What are my words? What kind of response is my word? Are my words going to generate? For instance, if I'm married, and I know that my spouse responds negatively to a certain type of behavior pattern, or to a certain conversation or a line of conversation, then I probably want to avoid that line of conversation, right? Because I know that if I do that, what it's going to do is it's going to incite a negative response. If I'm inciting a negative response, then I'm inviting chaos to come in my house. I don't want chaos. I don't want chaos in any of my relationships. I know I can't talk to one child the way I talk to the other child, because they have different personalities. They have different fingerprints. So many times we live in life as though everything is a template, and that we can treat everybody the same way, that everything is cookie cutter, or everything is one size fits all. No, everybody is different. And first of all, we should be cognitive, meaning that we should think before we speak. But the second thing we should all do is we should be creative in our conversation. How do you be creative? That means that you mold your conversation for the individual that you're talking to. I can't talk to Disco the way I talk to, I call her Ladybug. I can't talk to Disco the way I talk to Kennedy, because Kennedy's 18 years old. Kennedy's my daughter. Kennedy's a young lady. So I'm not going to talk to her like I talk to Disco. Disco, I'm not going to tell you. Do you mind me telling you how old you are? Disco's 45 years old. Disco has children. Disco's married. Disco's been in the world. So me and Disco talk on a whole different level. I'm going to talk with him with respect, first of all, because he is a man. But second of all, I'm going to talk to him as a married man. Third of all, I'm going to talk to him as a father. I'm going to talk to him on all of those different types of levels so that we can have effective communication. And you know what that does? It gives us commonalities. We got things we can talk about. Disco, you called me what, 8 o'clock this morning, right? Because we were talking about certain things that and it helped us have effective communication. When I call Kennedy, I'm talking about something totally different because I want to have effective communication. When I talk to my other child, Mackenzie, she's not on the screen right now. I cannot, hear me well, talk to her the way I talk to the other two because she's emotional. And it's not a bad thing. She's totally different. She's 17. She's 18. I think they're 15, 16 months apart. And Trey's 22. Now, I know I don't deal in astrology and zodiac and all that kind of stuff. But my birthday,
It's real.
some of it's real. My birthday is July 6th. Kennedy's birthday is July 12th. Trey's birthday is July 18th. We all think alike. We're all 12 days apart. We all have the same temperament, all that kind of stuff. Mackenzie's born in November 23rd. It's a whole different, she's a
Fire sign.
fire sign. That's what that is.
We're water. She's fire.
And she is a firecracker sometimes. And that's not a bad thing because you know what? Interestingly, my daughters are the ones. I mean, Trey has been, has played baseball and excelled and all that kind of stuff. But like Mackenzie has operated in the leadership capacity. She's been the second year in a row being the captain of the cheerleading team. She's the one that went out and got a job. This is your second job, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yes, the second job. Kennedy she went off to college, didn't even hardly leave her room the first semester except for to go to play club softball. But as a sophomore, next year, she's the president of the softball club softball team. So they are operating in leadership capacities, even though I didn't probably pour as much into them intentionally. I might have done it indirectly because they were watching, but I didn't pour as much into them intentionally. But yet and still, they picked up it somewhere from me or from their mother or somebody in their life, which has led them. But I believe that that's because they, as receivers, had been communicated to properly. So first thing the sender has to do is be cognitive. He has to think before he speaks. But the second thing that has to happen is his message should be creative. There's no one size fits all. The message should stay the same no matter how it's packaged. Does that make sense? You can have hot dogs. What's the name? Oscar Mayer can make hot dogs. Who else make hot dogs? Hebrew National can make hot dogs. Nathan's can make hot dogs. But at the end of the day, they're all packaged different, but they're still hot dogs, right? I can take a message, same message. If I want it to be effective, if I want to communicate, if I want to send an effective message for it, because I know who the receiver is, then it's my responsibility to make sure I package that message in such a way that it's effective. Okay? So it should be cognitive, should be creative, and Mackenzie's gonna like this next one. The third thing about the message is that it should be consistent. If you're going to talk to a person a certain way, or if you're going to if you have certain values, or you're professing to have certain values, then your message should always be consistent. You should always be saying the same thing. Your yays should be yays. Your nays should be nays. In relationships, once you establish boundaries and establish ground rules, then you need to make sure that your message is consistent. What do you think about that?
Definitely will make for an easier time. There's no confusion there if it's consistent.
Okay, so and that happens a lot of times in relationships, because sometimes our actions don't line up with our words. And if our actions don't line up with our words, then if somebody sees you saying something, but your actions don't line up with those words, then what happens is, like you just said, it creates confusion. And if it creates confusion, then it creates chaos, because now the listener can't trust the sender. And if the listener can't trust the sender, then the listener won't believe what the sender is saying. And if the listener don't believe what the sender is saying, then that just flat out kills effective communication, right? Because if I'm preaching to a congregation, or if I'm talking to a group of people, I want to be believable. I want them to make sure, I want to make sure they believe everything I'm saying. But if something I say doesn't line up, if something I say doesn't average out, then what will tend to happen is I'll lose that individual's trust. And if I lose that individual's trust, then my message is convoluted, and then therefore I won't be as effective in trying to get my message across. Am I leaving anything out on that? All right, so message should be cognitive, message should be creative, message should be consistent. If anybody wants to chime in on this conversation, do me a favor, call in at 678-638-6626. You can tell me some of the things that might be effective in your household, ways that you communicate, that raising your children that have made you be effective as a parent, or even in a spousal relationship, any of those types of relationship. What your secret was, or what's your methodology that works for you. So that's the sender. Now there are Ladybug's going to tell me. Kennedy, I'm sorry. She's going to tell you about the types of incompetent listening.
Well, there's a lot of incompetent listening that I'm kind of guilty of, but here are some of them. Selective listening, eavesdropping, pseudo listening, which is acting like you're listening when you aren't, aggressive listening, which is listening to attack, and narcissistic listening, which is pretty much just thinking what this person has to tell you is not going to be good enough for you as a person. You think that you know all. If you don't respect someone, you probably don't want to listen to them. I think if we go back to where you were talking about everything's designed for a certain person, there's different types of listeners. So if you're not spoken to in a way that you want to listen to, you might fall into pseudo listening, pretending to listen. I know. I can do that. If I, like you were saying, if I get yelled at,
You zone out.
yeah, I'm not gonna listen to you anymore.
No.
I'll stand there, but I'm not listening to you.
Haven't heard anything you said.
Yeah.
So it kills the effective communication. So what types of people, in what types of relationships have you been in where you had to do pseudo listening? Like parental situations, or
It's happened with teachers, so maybe that's professional.
okay.
Speaking downward. It's happened with Mackenzie and I, and Trey and I. So sibling relationships. I usually listen to you and Mom.
You usually listen to us. Would you tell us if you wouldn't?
No,
Okay, I didn't think so. Are you telling the truth?
I am.
Okay, good. I don't know you as much to be a liar, so I'm going to believe you on that one. So selective listening. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Selective listening is what? Selective listening is hearing what you want to hear, right? So if somebody sends you a message, and when they send you that message, you just start to extract whatever message. You didn't hear the whole thing. You really heard the whole thing, but you cherry pick. Disco, you ever been there before?
I say they don't want to take everything in.
They don't want to take everything in, right? How do you? So when you as a coach, and you go let the people see you on the screen. If you got your okay, yeah. If you as a coach, what type of listeners do you think your boys are, for the most part?
It all depends on their age.
Okay.
Cause you get them knuckleheads at 12, 11, 13, they're knuckleheads.
Okay. Would they be aggressive? Would they be narcissistic listeners?
They what you want to call them? They knuckleheads. They're not gonna listen to nothing.
So they don't listen at all. So those are probably more so selective listeners, right? Probably.
They're
Or pseudo listeners.
Yeah, they're the age where they decide what they don't really know what they want to do.
I got you. Have you ever experienced a narcissistic listener?
What is I don't know.
Explain to him what a narcissistic listener one more time.
They think that they're just above you. Anything you're gonna say isn't gonna change their mind. They know all.
That's women.
Oh, don't do that. We're not doing that tonight. We're not. We can't do it. We can't do it.
So you have encountered a narcissistic listener.
99.9.
No,
But it's me talking, Disco talking. I'm sorry. When
but no, we have those differences.
when you get kids like that, now see, what I said before about 11 and 13, that's knuckleheads. But what you said, that's usually 16, 17, 18 boys.
Okay.
They that.
And I'm sure as a coach, you're the sender. So as a sender, you're responsible for making sure that they understand the messages that you try to convey, right?
Correct.
So when you go out there as a coach, you've already got a practice plan together. Anytime you talk to them, it's not just to be talking, but it's intentional, right? You're expecting to get some type of results out of them, right?
Yes, sir.
And you know what it takes to incite a particular type of response.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And so that is a cognitive listener. That's someone who knows who his audience is. He's creative because he's put together a message that's understandable for this particular crowd. And he's also consistent because all season long he's saying the same thing. The playbook might change a little bit week to week, right? Because you're playing against different teams. But overall, the end result is what? Run, pass, kick, play, and do whatever you got to do.
It's kind of like in school. You got core classes, and you got some electives.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what grade you,
The fundamentals.
it's you still got to know the core classes are what count. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all got to know the fundamentals of that. Same thing with, like you said.
Now, the one that I don't want to get too far in a relationship, especially with my daughters here, because they haven't even gotten too far into
This
the,
me talking now.
Yeah. No. I'm going to say something else. Because she brought up another type of listener. That's the aggressive listener.
Mm-hmm.
Now, aggressive listeners, they listen to respond.
Yep.
And they don't listen to learn. So if I at the beginning of this slide, yes, sir.
That's me.
That's you. At the beginning of this whole conversation, I told you all, you're so funny. I told you all that the definition of interpersonal communication is this. It's the process of exchange of information, ideas. Now listen to that. It's the process of exchange. That means in a conversation, in communication, we're exchanging ideas. I share something with you. If I share something with you, you ought to be open enough for me to share something back with you. And we should be able to exchange information. And we exchange information, we exchange ideas, and we exchange feelings between two or more people, right? So that means that this conversation is, I think a lot of people are comfortable in monologues, and they're comfortable as long as they're the one doing the talking, right? As long as they're the one, and I know this probably happens, especially in some parental situations and single mother situations where they're used to doing all the talking. I mean, just yelling, just doing all the talking.
Be careful where you're going.
I know, and I hate to do it. But just, hey, I got big feet. I got size 12 shoes. Right. Yeah. So when this starts to happening, they think that's communication because they're the ones doing all the talking. But if no one's receiving the message, or if I'm talking to you and you already have a preconceived notion that everybody in relationships don't get along, or all men or all women or this and that, or everybody's negative and all this kind of stuff. So when a person starts to talk to you or try to share something with you, you're already listening for a response. You're in a defensive position from the beginning, saying, and that happens a lot when someone wants to out-talk the other person. Well, do you keep testifying?
That's me again.
Are you learning anything tonight?
Nope. You just thought
Yeah, I'm revealing. So I'm telling the truth, in other words.
I mean, when I argue with somebody, I'm waiting for that punchline. I'm waiting. In my mind, I'm saying, I dare you say it. I know it's coming. I dare you say it. I dare you say it. Now, everything they saying before that, I ain't even hear nothing about it. I know.
But are you listening to argue?
Yeah, because I know you're getting ready to go there. So I'm not gonna start out nice with you because I know where you're going at with it. So I'm waiting for that to come out your mouth.
What if it never comes out?
We waste the whole conversation.
But so if you're in a different,
We're talking about argument, not a conversation.
No, we talking about a conversation.
Well, cool. I'm cool.
We talking about a conversation.
I'm gonna listen.
Yeah, we talking about a conversation, but we're talking about somebody who.
Mother niece, she on my side.
Yeah, she gonna say that right because she closer to you. But if we're in a conversation, what this is saying is, in a normal conversation, you're already set up to argue, even though we're in a regular conversation.
That's me. I mean, you can put a poll out right now on Facebook, I swear, and tag me and ask them people, is DISCO100 argumentative?
Well, I mean, you ain't the only one that's argumentative. Trust me, we almost had 1 minute. Man, we both can argue now. I'm good.
I was right.
No, we both were right.
Right.
We both were right.
I was right because the screen that they seen.
And I was right because it wasn't on the screen and I couldn't see the phone number.
Okay. Okay.
Now I'm gonna remember now. Watch this. 6, 7. I know I'm
I don't even know about her.
Okay, well watch this. 678 638 6626. Is that right?
So you want to be the one just to say it.
Yeah.
So people can't see it.
Yeah. So that way I can, in case they're not on there, because I'm trying to get them to go there.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But
That's
sometimes
what I was
they,
saying.
yeah.
You tripping about something they see it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
If I trip about something, I usually have a reason to trip about it in my mind. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's the one that matters to me.
We
It's
gonna
my
have
mind. We arguing on Facebook. This is aggressive listening that we're doing right now. We're doing what you call a skit.
Wait till Wednesday.
I ain't coming Wednesday. I changed my mind. I ain't coming Wednesday. I ain't coming Wednesday. But for real though, no. But this is what we want to do. We want to try to get it set up so that we can do effective communication. Now, let's go back a little bit to that to the question. I was hoping someone would have called in tonight. Now, Disco, I asked you this last week, and we're gonna talk about it a little bit more. Which one is more important? Getting your point across or keeping the peace?
Depending on who you're dealing with.
I'm glad you said that because I ducked. I thought you was going.
I can break it down depending on who you're dealing with.
Okay. And give me the difference in different dynamics of who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with
me talking.
Okay.
If I'm dealing with my wife,
Mm-hmm.
whatever gonna keep her quiet.
So you want to keep the peace?
Keep the peace.
Okay.
If the sky red, the sky red.
Mm-hmm.
Period. I'm done with it.
Even if it's blue,
Even if it's bright blue.
It's not
if you
working.
say it's red, it's red.
I agree with that.
If that's all you going, if that's all you want, and me say it's red, and you going to sleep, and you good, it's red.
I agree with that. I agree with
I ain't
that.
worried about it.
So in what instance are you not worried about keeping the peace? You'd
If
rather get your point across.
something's gonna hinder me or my family or our well-being.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna jeopardize us.
Like what type of scenario would that be?
Financial or going somewhere that's not safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something's gonna come back to haunt us.
So who are you talking? You talking to your family now?
Anybody.
Okay.
Even me and you, I think some going outside, and I'm like, Jay, we need to chill out for a little while. We gonna argue till you sit your butt down because we ain't going outside.
Now I'm not going to. Your wife not listening, but I'm going to ask because you've been with her for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
For her, is it more important to get get her point across?
I got a good one, man. Mine don't like to argue.
Yours don't like to argue.
She like to get her point across, but she won't argue about it.
And like I said earlier, there is a way to do both. You can get your point across and keep the peace at the same time.
Let me ask your daughter something, not relationship wise.
Good.
I'm a Libra, she a Libra. We
No.
both Libras.
Who?
Me and my wife.
Okay.
So we're a year and 6 days apart. Like I was born in 75, she was born in 74, same one. So that might be, we might have to have the same concept, I guess. I don't know.
Sometimes you do, man. I mean, if I know, I'm not into it. I don't wake up every day reading the Zodiac like it's the newspaper, nothing like that. But I have over the years noticed certain characteristics about,
But you did hit it on the point. You did hit a very valid point. I'm taking it with me. There's certain people that I gotta have my way with. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if we arguing about sports and I'm a Cowboy fan, we gonna argue all day long because I'm a Cowboy fan.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So that it ain't a piece. We gonna argue.
Does it get contentious?
Oh yeah, football talk. Oh,
You mean it?
Yes. You talk about my Hurricanes? Oh, it's over. We arguing all day long.
Even now?
Even now.
Even though they hadn't had a good team
Even
forever?
Don't start. Don't go.
I'm just asking a
Go.
question. Well, I don't have no. I don't.
I'm just saying.
I don't follow teams. I follow players
some
like
be
that.
fun, but as you get older,
Mm-hmm.
like I ain't gonna lie to you, I was married at 20 years old with this same woman. We probably argue every day because we both had different mentalities back then.
Mm-hmm.
But now to the point where there's other stuff that's more important to argue about.
That's key and critical. And you know what, man? For me, especially in a spousal or in a romantic type relationship, I can't argue with somebody that I'm supposed to love like that.
Yeah.
Because then I'm gonna have to sleep in the bed with you if we are at that point, or I'm gonna have to go out to that. Because I ain't gonna lie, I got a good memory, man, and I hold grudges to an extent. You know.
And let's switch it real quick. Kids. That's your next question.
Yeah.
Even with my boy, you got daughters, so it's different for you.
Mhm.
I got all boys.
Mm-hmm.
When they think they know everything, I ain't finna go back and forth with you. I'm not.
How do you handle it?
Don't call me.
Don't call you. So what's
When
your
they catch up with you, don't call.
what's now? But you got now. What are your ages of your boys?
All my boys, I got everybody, all of them grown but 11-year-old. I got a 29-year-old, 28, 25, 23, 19.
So how did it affect? How do you parent your 11-year-old different than you did your 29-year-old?
I do them all the same way, but when they get to a certain age and they know everything, now you got two choices. Now you got to move, or get out, and I'm done. So if everything I turn out, do you want to do it? Don't call me, Khalid.
I think we.
Now the girls, I don't got no girls. I got granddaughters.
But
I
even
can't
with
speak for granddaughters.
but even with that though, we parented Trey different than we did Mackenzie. Trey played baseball, so he was always
But he was busy.
And
he had no idle mind.
Yeah, he didn't even have a social life.
See, we try to get all our boys, all of them play sports. To keep them.
And baseball is practiced every day.
But when they get to that certain age, I don't say what I want to say with daughters here. When they get that certain age and their hormones get different, they think they Superman. It's time to say, look, son, I love you, but we ain't going back and forth. So this is
man.
So for peace wise,
me and my son never had those problems because one thing I believe is that training leads to trusting.
Yeah.
And so I trained him, and so he'll call me and say, and I love our conversations because he'll call me and say, and this is what I look for when he calls me. When he says, Dad, you know what? I was thinking. And then he'll go through his whole scenario telling me what he was thinking. And then when we get through, I say, I didn't talk to you later. But what you think? What difference does it make? What you mean? You were thinking. So if you were thinking, what difference does that make?
I used to call you for that.
For confirmation.
Yeah.
And that's all. And my way of confirming him was saying, I have a good day. That means I got it. And I agree. Because if I wouldn't have agreed, guess what I would have done? I would have said something different. Or, and it's another thing, because sometimes the end result or the intended result of a conversation might change based on the new information that I learned.
Watch this. Communication wise, you're talking.
Let me say this. No, let me say this first.
Your brother first or your dad first?
Dad.
Okay. But let me say this before I lose this train of thought. Now, with Trey, for instance, because like I said, there's an intended, effective communication, you want an intended result. That's clarity, right? So sometimes in our conversations, he might present me with something that I didn't think about. And if I didn't think about it and he presents it to me, then I got to consider it. Why? Because it made sense.
You know what? I'm laughing because I told my sons, you're going to probably laugh at me. I say, look, if you want to go somewhere and I say no, I have no problem with you trying to plead your case.
Exactly.
I have no problem. I say, no, you can't go, and you say, Dad, look, man, somebody mama going to be there. I don't have no problem.
Absolutely.
That don't mean I'm going to say yeah,
but
I have no problem with you coming back.
And I admire your hustle.
Yeah.
I admire the fact that you tried me in a good way. Man, I remember, and I love talking about my kids. Trey at how was he? We were living in Hiram then. 9 years old, I believe it was. He called me upstairs, and he had his little wallet in his hand. And he said, Dad, can we get Armageddon? That was WWE wrestling. Can we get Armageddon? I'll pay half.
Oh.
Armageddon. That's, the wrestling, WWE wrestling, when they had pay-per-view. No, pay-per-view wrestling. So he said, Dad, can we get, he said, can we get Armageddon? I'll pay half. And he had his little wallet in his hand. And he had, it was $65. So he was going to give me $32.50 because he wanted to watch this Armageddon. Yeah. And the way he said it was, with his wallet in his hand, as an 8-year-old, Dad, can we get it? Yeah. I'll pay half. I was proud because he was assertive enough to come to me with a message and a plan. His message was, can I get it? His plan was, I'll help by paying half of it. I said, son, you know what? You can get it and you don't have to pay nothing. And guess what? I'm going to sit up here and watch it with you. And we sat in his room and we watched it because I like the fact, like you just said, if they say no, and then they plead their case, that's fine. And guess what, parents? That's not talking back all the time.
So what you think about this? My 11-year-old, when he wants something, he'll say, Daddy, what can I do around the house for this?
He's trying to earn it.
He won't ask me. No, he'll say, Daddy, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I for this? You know what he doing?
And he's trying to earn it because ain't nothing wrong with giving your children incentives for doing the right thing. We used to give out a long time ago. We used to give them grades for their A's and all that kind of stuff. They got them started. They too smart. They'll break me every time.
I'm glad all my boys ain't bringing home no A's. I'm good.
You glad they not bringing home A's so you won't have to give no money? Come on, man. Listen, everybody's hearing that communication. That is not effective communication.
I got 2 of them that had me scared. The other ones I won't worry about no A's.
Man, please. Mine ain't never
They all graduated though.
Mine, the B's they get, at least they count as A's because they have because they got a honest class.
A's, but I'm getting scared.
You getting scared?
I'm see what the teacher is.
If mine come home without A's, I'm getting mad.
I'm joking.
No, I know you are. But that's the goal. The goal is always going to be effective communication. And as parents, especially with our children, we have to be creative enough to make sure we get the results. And guess what? At a certain point when it comes to parenting, it turns into counseling.
That's real.
You want them to make the decision.
That's real.
You want to hear them talk. I like the challenge for me with my children has always been to get what's in their heads and their hearts into their mouths.
That's why I hate these. I
Yeah.
hate these because right now, like what I do for a living, I could be at a red light, and I see say for instance, y'all, you and these two in the back seat.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody talking.
Everybody on their phone. And we do that sometimes, but we come together and talk at times as well. But you got me. Another thing, we gotta realize that's the generation that we're living in now. And the thing, it is what hey, you can either change with the time, but the time's gonna keep changing.
Okay, let me ask something.
Okay.
Mr. Pastor, how'd you feel if your people in the church was on their phone while you were preaching?
I wouldn't feel some type of way. You know why? Because a lot of times people do that now because they got their Bible apps on their phones.
Wow.
So and you know what, man? I don't major in minors.
Wow. Never thought about it.
Let me ask you this: Have you if you got in a fight right now, because you told me you could put them together. I mean, you said you've done pretty good in your life with putting your hands together, right? You know, but have you ever seen anybody fight air and win?
Who they fighting?
That's what I'm saying. You can't fight air and win, right? This is air. So if I fight air, I'm gonna look. I can't give air a black
They
eye.
know what they own. They gonna.
I can't. No, I'm talking about this over here. I can't.
If they on that good stuff, they thought they wanted.
I can't listen. I can't. But I can't.
She like she mad. I ain't gonna look at her.
No, that's just her thought process. Leave it alone.
Scared to look.
No, but Air has never had a black eye. Air has never had a bloody nose. So I can create all types of scenarios of what might or might happen or whatever. What I'm dealing with what is, okay? So with that being said, I'm trying to make sure that we always have effective communication. And that's my responsibility.
So what do you do as a parent real quick? And when you went out in the mood to talk to your girls?
When I'm not in the mood to talk,
And you know they want to do something next week, or I don't know how your household was, but I'm assuming Daddy can. I won't ask Daddy, can we do this? But
that's a good question.
But Daddy had a bad day.
That's a good question.
What was your approach on that? When you got to that point and you want to do something, but you know your dad had a bad day and you didn't want to, but you had to make a decision.
I want to hear this answer
that
too.
next day. So say for instance your girls called you, y'all going somewhere, carnival or something, and you want to ask your daddy, can you go Friday, Thursday, but he had a bad day at work.
I'll abandon shit. I don't
I'm not
care to. I'll abandon the whole plan.
They know me. They won't ask.
Oh, that's what I mean. I thought they mean you just leave.
No.
I said, they,
No. No.
They told you talk all that communication.
But they listen. But watch this. But watch this though. Watch this, Disco, because that's a good question you asked. And they both answered it the way I thought they
they did.
would. They won't ask, but they know I'm not gonna hold a grudge that long. If I'm upset right now, I'm not gonna be upset for 2 or 3 hours, 4 or 5 hours, whatever. Give me a few minutes. I'm gonna go to the backyard, drive around the corner, do something. You know what I'm saying? And a little bit later, am I telling the truth? A few minutes later, I'm gonna come back and I'm a whole different person.
So for y'all put his feelings before you want to go out. Like, you know, it wasn't that important to address Dad because I know Dad had a bad day today.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. So that's what you want, the peace versus the. Okay.
Yeah. But she knows in a few minutes I'm gonna come back because, like I said, I would have a bad day at work, come home, wouldn't say much. Hey, how y'all doing? Go upstairs, change clothes. Like I said, go outside, go in the backyard, go whatever. And then a few minutes later, I come back and the whole script is flipped. What's up? How was y'all day? What's going on? And now we can have this communication. That's why I said you might not be able to get peace at 9 o'clock, but if you can wait till 9:15.
No win to win.
Yeah, it's your approach. You know, sometimes and if you have a certain approach and that approach didn't work, reapproach. You know what I'm saying? Me and my ex, it was at a certain point I can remember, and I said I'm writing a book. And this is good. This ain't bad stuff. But we used to do what I call 3 a.m. No. We used to do 3 a.m. conversations.
Who?
Me and my ex.
For what? Why 3 o'clock?
Because both of us would wake up at the same time in the middle of the night. And if we were having problems, we would literally sit there in the bed. Couldn't nobody see nobody because it was pitch black in the room. But we'll have our deepest conversations at 3 o'clock in the morning and then go right back to sleep. You know what I'm saying? But you got to do what's effective for you. So for some people, it's effective to send text because they know they can't control their emotions.
I hate text because you read into them.
Now we talked about that text.
I can't stand
We said text the
Sometimes
internet.
don't mean nothing. It don't have nothing to do. It no bad meaning, but you reading it. So
Misinterpreted. You know what I'm saying? But if you know the person you're dealing with, you should know their intent. Hey, listen, we've had a good time tonight talking about interpersonal communication and the effects of the effects of personal communication and having consistent communication. Listen, we're going to continue to have these types of conversations. Disco, thank you tonight. Thank you, Kennedy. Thank you for your insight. Mackenzie, thank you for stopping by tonight. We appreciate you. We're going to continue to have these conversations next week. We'll put our new topic out, but we want to always understand that we should always have clear communication in the household. If we have clear communication, then the effect will be understanding, and that's what we want, is clear understanding. The Bible even says, in all of thy getting, get understanding. So let's try to have clear understanding. So I know, check it out. I'll see you all next week at 9:30 p.m. Same bat time, same bat channel. Now, remember this. Remember this. The world is changing. Why do you remain the same? See you next week.